and writing, and I guess my passion, the thing that I most want to give to you today, and through my writing and my speaking and my life coaching that I do, is that our deepest pain can be our greatest teacher, and it often is our greatest teacher, and it also is our greatest contribution that we have to give society. When I started writing this story, the universe kind of conspired to help me move along with it. I'm sure you've all had experiences where you take a move and things, for me, I get really clear that I'm headed in the right direction because things come to me easily. And when things come to me easily, I know, okay, I'm going down the right path. Because I don't know about you, but I grew up with struggle being the way that it was. You know, we are trained to struggle. I was trained to expect bad things to happen. And what I realized is when that very difficult thing happened to me when I was 22 years old, I made a decision. And that decision I made was, you can't trust the universe. This is not a safe place, so I better hunker down and take care of myself. And that's a terrible way to live. Looking back now, I think, oh, boy, that was a very difficult way to live. You know, but sometimes we don't know the mistakes we make until we get beyond them. And we can look back and say, oh, that was a decision I made that wasn't such a good decision. So there's this quote by Einstein that says, the most important decision you can make in life is whether or not the universe is benevolent. If you really believe that life is good, that good will happen to you, you are creating a channel for that to happen. If you believe that life is a dangerous place, that there's no safety anywhere, and that you're on your own, life turns out to be a process of what you believe in your mind. At least that was true for me. So at 22, when I decided, it ain't safe, man. I gotta really take care of myself and do everything on my own and make this happen and make that happen without any kind of higher power or God or anything like that. And where that led me was at 45, I couldn't get out of bed. I had had a lot of losses in my life. What I found to be true is that if you don't resolve something, the universe keeps giving you a bigger push towards it. You know, like the universe is trying to give you a message and you may not get it, then you get a stronger nudge. And then, you know, with the stronger nudge, if you don't get it, then you get an even stronger nudge. So for 25 years, I had one loss after another. I kept losing things, jobs, careers, relationships, communities. And I think now the universe was trying to tap me on the shoulder and say, sweetheart, you didn't finish your grief life in a big, big way. I think a lot of rugs are being pulled out from under us. You know, if you've put a lot of your security tied up in money and investments and owning things and having a particular status in the world, as you know, that's all changing. So we have to reinvent ourselves to ask maybe some bigger questions about what our life is going to be about. And that isn't an easy thing to do. I know, because I've been down that road, but it's kind of like I've traveled that road so many times now that I'm kind of getting used to, this is the way life is. There isn't much security, at least for the places where I've looked for security. You know, a full-time job, a relationship with someone that just adored me, you know, having a house and a couple cars in the garage. All the places where I've looked for security and peace haven't given me that. So I've had to dig deeper and investigate more and explore the area that I call the shadow. You know, the shadow side of us is the part of us that we can't own, that we project onto other people. And I've learned a lot about my own shadow, you know, by having to face these issues in my life that were so uncomfortable for me. I feel fortunate that I was given the courage and the strength to do this kind of really deep work, and I know now that has really defined me. When I was writing my book, I was so depressed that I really couldn't work, and I just want to tell you some stories of how the universe supported me in going down this road. So I knew I had to do this. When I was depressed, I went to a doctor, and the doctor said, you need to take medication. You're not going to pull yourself out from under this without medication. And I was really opposed to taking medication for depression. I thought, if I just exercise enough, I can change my mood in my head. Well, I was out there every day, really exercising a lot, but it was just, I couldn't impact that. So I became willing to do things I was never able to do before. I became willing to try the medication. And lo and behold, after about 3 months, it was kind of like I had lived under this dark cloud for so long, and all of a sudden, I'd wake up in the morning and I could see just the beginning of a sunrise, in my mind. It was like, oh, things are starting to lighten up. This is pretty cool. And, the more that I sat down and wrote about my past and investigated, that sky became really brilliant and full of light. Instead of living under this dark cloud, I found that my life was becoming a lot lighter in many ways. Grief is like a snowball. If you roll it down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger if you don't do anything about it. But if you start to pay attention to the grief, it starts shrinking and melting, and all the love you apply to the grief makes the grief smaller and smaller, and pretty soon you wake up and you realize that this deep darkness that you've carried around for so long is diminished, and there's sunshine again in your life. I don't have your solutions or your answers. I just have the questions to ask you so you can look within and find out what your wound is and how you can heal it. So I want to get back to attitudes about change. It is said that 10% of what we experience in life is random and 90% is not random. So if the 90% is not random, what is that 90% based on, our life experience? And I say it's based on our attitude about life. Back again to the point that if you think the universe is going to do you good, it'll do you good. But if you think that people are out to get you, if you think that you got bad times ahead of you, that pretty much is the way that it happens. So, let's take a scenario. For example, you get laid off from your job, which may have happened to some of you. Maybe you've put in a lot of years in a career, and all of a sudden, with times being the way they are now, you get your pink slip or whatever they call it, and you don't have a job. So, what are some of the attitudes that you could have about that? You could be really angry and upset that you've put so many years into a career or an organization, and now they just say, thank you very much, we don't need you anymore. So you could have an angry attitude about it. You could be really fearful about it. I know a lot of people are in fear. And, what's true is if you hang out in a feeling, often that feeling gets magnified. So if you're feeling fearful about things and you keep imagining more fear, then what you get is more things to be fearful for. So that's why it's really, really important to pay attention what goes on up here. Because what goes on up here usually manifests out in your world. Whether it's fear, whether it's anger. And some of you might be blessed to have the attitude, I am so glad I am not at that job anymore. I didn't like it. I was trapped there. I couldn't use my best skills. So that is probably an attitude of, if you could choose your attitude, which I believe you can. I don't think we know that we can choose our attitude, but I really believe that we can. And when we learn how to choose an attitude over and over and over again, our life starts to contain that attitude.